Some of us need you to settle in our houses. Oh God. Oh God. This is our prayer tonight. Purify our hearts, Lord. Purify our hearts, Lord. Sanctify my heart, Lord. Sanctify my heart, Lord. Oh Lord, we need you. We need to see. Oh Father, tonight we're desperate for you. And let your glory settle here. Let it settle here. Y'all help me say, purify us, Lord. It's real simple, church. Say, purify. Purify.
Good afternoon, lunchtime lifter listeners and viewers. It's your host, Leandra Weaver, and we have now made it to episode 3. Episode 3's topic is identity. And I'm going to dive right into it. This topic was very difficult for me, and I was wondering why is the topic of identity difficult for me? And that's because I struggle with it. And I did not know I struggled with identity. But let's talk about what identity is. Identity is self-image and how we view ourselves. And every time I'm getting ready to put the podcast together, I call friends of mine to talk about the topic to bounce ideas off of them. So we're on the phone and we're talking about identity and how we view ourselves. And I noticed in the conversation that as they continued to talk, I kind of got disconnected from the conversation because I was starting to realize that I struggle with my identity. And then I started to think deeply about it. Why did I struggle with it? And why is this topic so difficult for me? And it brought me back to my childhood. And although I had awesome parents and a good upbringing, my parents had dreams that they never fulfilled. And they were still trying to fulfill them vicariously through their kids. And that's how I started my struggle with identity, through my parents and living out their dreams. And when I think about it, when I think about it, it's difficult talking because, as you can see, it's a struggle for me. When I think about it, growing up, my parents told me what I was going to be, what I was going to do, how I was going to behave, how I was going to act. And actually, them doing that to me is what led me to study psychology and understand identity and how important it was. And although I got the fundamental knowledge of it, I didn't know it left a big void in my real life. And as I grew older, I became very, very rebellious. Very toxic, because all of my life I was living somebody else's life and I was tired of it. And by the time I got into the church, I made up in my mind that I was not going to lose my identity. I was not going to lose my identity in Christ, and no one was going to continue to tell me in my adulthood what I was going to do, how I was going to act, how I was going to behave, how I was going to dress. It was just not going to happen. And I became very toxic with the righteous. And I never understood, because I was a sinner and I didn't see that they were trying to save me. I seen them trying to, again, control my identity. And later in the week, I got my phone and I went to TD Jakes to view a video of his on the topic of identity. And he was talking about the story of a leper. And I want to read it to you because I printed it out. It said from Mark chapter 1, verse 40 through 45, Jesus encounters a leper, someone whose skins left him ceremonially unclean according to the Old Testament law. Leprosy was a particularly cruel condition. It was regarded as incurable and highly contagious. Those afflicted with it endured both physical discomfort and social isolation, and for something they did not do or bring on themselves. And I can definitely relate to that, because although I became very rebellious, it wasn't due to anything I did. It was due to how I was brought up, and I was trying to create my identity, but I did it the wrong way. And they were considered a spiritual as well as a physical contagion. And I became contagious. I was very toxic, radioactive, so to speak. But as I started my journey, I noticed the feeling, and it didn't feel good. I was the leper. At first I said I was able to relate to the leper, but I was the leper. I was very contagious. Everything I touched kind of died due to who I was, due to my self-image. And my self-image was not right. And I had to pretty much kill my identity for Christ. And that was tough for me. It was tough for me to say I had to kill who I was, but who I was not right. And in order for me to say that I'm a Christian and I'm saved, I can't say that I'm taking that toxic identity and that's Christ-like, because it wasn't. I had to kill my identity and be shaped in the form of the Son. So I had to kill my identity for Christ. And that's what I encourage all of my lunchtime listener, viewers, and watchers. If you are in the position that I am, yes, childhood makes a difference. Yes, we're struggling with our identity due to how we was brought up, whether it was neglect, whether it was being told how to dress, how to eat, how to act. But we can use it for our good. And we have to kill our identity and be restored in Christ. And